So all you've got to do is to try and make yourself as roughly balanced as possible around the back leg, and to make it so the back leg is actually as straight vertical always as possible. This means that the actual balance point is around the centre of your body, and also when you do lift your bridge off the floor, there's just a hint of movement in the forward direction. Just to recap, the right foot in line with the shot with the whole of the right leg straight, locked at the knee. The left foot to the left of the shot with the left leg bent. The weight of the shot should be not too far forward, not too far back, and also try and keep the hips in line with the shot, not too far to the right of it. Right, we're now going to look at the bridge, which of course is a very, very important part of the whole action as well, because it's one of the two actual touching points on the cue you have. The bridge is, as it suggests, must be a very, very firm, solid base for the cue to run through. I can't really show you or teach you your own individual bridge because, of course, everybody's got different hands. What I'm going to try and show you is roughly how you should go about it. First of all, just put your hand normally on the table like that. Then try and spread your fingers as wide apart as possible. I've got a very, very wide spread, which is helpful to me. Also, the fact that I've been playing a long time means I've developed that. Then raise the knuckles up and grip with the pads of the fingers, like so. And then bring the thumb into the index finger and try and bend that part of the thumb up as much as possible. This then gives you a very, very strong V to run the cue through. And of course there's very little wobble. As you can see, I can have to move my hand a lot to get any real wobble out of the shot. And so, as you can see, there's a nice, very, very strong V for the cue to run through. As for how far away from the ball you should be with the bridge, I think roughly a foot is about average. If you're too close to the shot, that gives you not enough time to bring the cue back and develop any cue power. Of course, if you're too far away from it, that means any movement at the back here will be exaggerated at the tip end. So you've got to find a place in between which sort of accounts for both. So I think about a foot's right, and it gives you a nice control and also not much movement in that direction as well. Okay, that's the normal bridge. Of course, a lot of the time you can't actually use your normal bridge for reasons perhaps the ball is too close to the cushion. What you've got to try and do then is to adapt the bridge to suit the shot. And depending on how far away it is from the cushion, governs really what sort of bridge you use. What I'm going to try and do is to show you varying types of bridges from different distances away from the cushion. And starting off with the white ball level with the black ball, as you can see, I can get the whole of my bridge on the table very nicely, and also, just to make it even firmer, as most players do, the whole of my left arm on the table makes a nice solid base. When the white ball is level with the pink, I then find that I can't put the rest of my forearm on the table. I have to lean it on the cushion, but still I'm very, very solid. When the white ball is level with the blue, I now come into problems because I can't actually put the base of my hand on the table, otherwise I'd be too close to the shot and I'd be cramped. So I've then got to bring the bridge back a bit and rest that part of the hand on the cushion, but still gripping very, very strongly with the finger pads. That means there's a gap underneath, but as long as you keep it very, very still, it's okay. And the white ball's level with the brown, even that's too close, so I have to bring my bridge back even further, and this is where it becomes a matter of choice. You can either cue like this, making a groove between the first finger and the thumb, or you can wrap the index finger over the top of the cue and guide it between the first and second fingers, and also make sure the thumb is gripping against the table. It's really a matter of choice. Once again, with the white ball next to the green, you still have the same choice, but I tend to find that this knuckle tends to get in the way of the shot, so I prefer to play the shot like that. The hardest bridge, of course, is when the white ball is very, very close to the cushion. This is where most people have a lot of trouble. They get a bit panicky and want to try and snatch at the shot, and also a lot of miscuing happens. The one thing to remember is, of course, you've got to try and hit the ball very, very nice and smooth, and to have that you still need a very, very strong bridge. What you need to do, of course, is to put the fingers on the table, grip as firm as possible, is to slightly raise the butt of the cue up into the air, because of course you'll be hitting down on the shot because you can't see too much of the white, and just bring the thumb and the index finger together to make another strong V, like so. If you want to play a power shot, which is a very hard shot off the cushion, you have to bring the bridge back even further and put the finger pads on the edge of the table and actually make the V well back off the table. This means you've then got enough room to bring the cue back a long way before you hit the ball. But of course, every shot you must make sure the bridge is as solid as possible. The only other type of bridge, apart from... there's loads of other bridges you can cue up like that. All of those really are up to your choice. You've just got to make it as comfortable and as firm as possible. And I can't start going into... there's millions of different ways of doing those. The only other bridge you really need to know for snooker is when you're actually trying to play over another ball, which is one that a lot of people have a bit of trouble with. What you're going to try and do is to make yourself as solid as possible. First of all, your feet are going to be in a different position, but you've just got to jack yourself up in the air because the cue has got to be well up in the air. And you are only going to use the finger pads to play the shot. The rest of your hand is going to be off the table. This is how you do it. As you can see, my finger pads are really gripping into the cloth. Gives me as much stability as possible. Once again, the thumb is right next to the forefinger and making a groove with the index finger knuckle and the rest of my thumb. As you can probably see from here, I've got a very funny thumb. I'm very fortunate the fact that it's slightly double jointed. But you've got to make do with the best as possible. And as you can see, I'm still very solid even though I'm well up in the air. Just to go back over the most important parts of the bridge, the fingers well spread apart and the whole hand gripping the cloth, the thumb making a very, very strong V with the index finger, the whole of the left forearm on the table making the bridge as immovable as possible, about a foot away from the ball for any normal shot, and to make sure you keep as still as possible after you've played the shot with the bridge. Here's an exercise to strengthen your cueing technique off the cushion. As you can see, I've put 4 white balls on the bottom cushion tight against it, and I'm now going to try and hit the first 2 into the top corner pockets. Make sure, of course, that when you do play the shot, you keep your head down on the cue well afterwards. Of course, the white ball is very close to the cushion, so make sure you chalk the cue before every shot to avoid any miscuing, especially on a shot where you're hitting the top or the bottom of the ball. When you feel you can do that consistently, try the middle pockets. They're much harder. Of course, make sure when you do play the shot, when you actually hit the ball, you're looking at the pocket. And lastly, when you're actually playing a shot, don't panic at all. It is a hard shot to play. Make sure your cueing is nice and smooth, no jerking. When you've actually finished the shot, make sure you leave the cue in the same position. Don't bring it back. We now come to an aspect of the game that perhaps causes more problems than any other. I'm talking about the cue action, the actual way you strike the ball. What many people don't realise is that there's a stroke-making technique to snooker that's just as important as it is in golf. Let's have a look at the cue action and see what the main points are. I believe that the simpler the technique, the less chance there is of making mistakes. Now, to me, the simplest way to make sure that you deliver your cue straight is to have the arm and the cue and the shot all in one line. So that's the first point to note. Make sure your right arm is lined up with your cue. Let me show you a way you can check the alignment of your action for yourself. Put a mirror against the side of the table, put the white ball in the middle and aim to hit its reflection in the mirror. You'll be able to see if your arm's in line with the cue. And you'll also be able to tell whether or not the 2 cues are lined up before and after the shot. Now you might find your reflection looks something a bit like this, or perhaps the other way, tucked in. These are 2 common faults. Or you might find that the cue is actually running up the inside of your arm. If you then try and bend your left arm, you'll find that perhaps the cue will then be dead straight in line with your right arm. There are 3 positions involved in the cueing action. The first is the rest position. The second is the backswing position. And the final one is the follow-through position. Now let's look at the 3 stages together. The important thing to note is how little movement there is in the upper part of my arm. The elbow is acting as a kind of pivot. It's this stability that is the basis of a consistent, simple cueing action. In one way, the cueing action has a lot in common with the action used in darts. 100! So the second point is to keep your elbow in the same position throughout the stroke. How can you make sure this happens? Well, it all depends on having your arm vertical when your cue is in the rest position. Let me show you why. Watch what happens when my arm is stretched back too far. The butt end lifts up as I pull back. To compensate, I have to move my elbow, which would add another variable to the action.